Have you ever heard of Lauren Hugelmaier? Her story is one of joy, love, and ultimately heartbreak. Lauren was born in 1988 and grew up with her parents and two sisters in Kentucky. Lauren was extremely close and tight-knit with everyone in her family, and they were also very religious and traditional. But more specifically, she had a very close bond with her father Dale and her sister Beth. When Lauren was attending middle school, she went with a boy named Matthew Phelps. It's not specified if the two were actually friends or close at all, and it's more likely than not they just knew of each other. The two parted ways in high school since Matthew transferred, and Lauren eventually moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. Lauren's childhood was filled with laughter and adventure as she spent countless hours playing in the parks of Raleigh, exploring the nooks and crannies of her hometown. Her parents often reminisced about her endless curiosity and zest for life that shone through even in her early years. When it came to school, Lauren was a diligent student. She attended Wakefield High School, where she displayed a keen interest in the arts and sciences. Her teachers remember her as a brilliant and dedicated student who was always eager to learn. She was known for her infectious smile and bright personality, traits that made her popular among her peers. Outside of school, Lauren had a passion for dance. She spent many evenings at the local dance studio, mastering the art of ballet. Her grace and poise on the dance floor were a sight to behold. Dance became a medium for her to express herself, and she found joy in every pirouette, every leap, every rhythm. These formative years played a crucial role in shaping Lauren into the woman she later became. Her love for learning, her passion for dance, and her natural empathy were traits that remained with her throughout her life. They were the threads that wove the fabric of her character, making her the vibrant, compassionate, and intelligent woman she was. A bright and vivacious young girl, Lauren had a promising future ahead of her. Unlike Lauren's family, who was very tight-knit with her family, Matthew did not have a family like this growing up. Matthew was primarily raised by his grandparents as opposed to his parents. He had a single mother who was only occasionally around, and his biological father was completely absent from his life. His mother remarried a few times, but Matthew was never able to form that father and son bond with any of his stepfathers. This flawed dynamic during such a trivial time in his life caused him to start acting out. When Matthew entered high school, he started hanging out with the wrong crowd of people and began abusing drugs and alcohol. More specifically, Matthew and his friends consumed Coricidin Cough and Cold recreationally. Like most heavy cough medicines, taking more than the recommended dose can cause a high, and this was something Matthew consistently took advantage of. This addiction began to spiral, and Matthew's grandparents eventually took Matthew out of public high school and put him in a private Christian academy to get his life back on the right track. For the time being, this worked well for Matthew. He started getting better grades in school and went off to college after graduating. He eventually attended the Clear Creek Baptist Bible College in Pineville, Kentucky, and seemed to have significantly improved from his early high school years. Later on in their mid-20s, Matthew reached out to Lauren through Instagram and began catching up again. For a few months following their initial online reunion, the two began a long-distance relationship since Matthew was still living in Kentucky, whereas Lauren had moved. However, despite the hundreds of miles apart from each other, Matthew and Lauren's relationship began progressing quickly. Matthew started visiting Lauren in Raleigh and eventually moved there just to be with her. While Lauren and Matt began to fall head over heels for each other, most of Lauren's family was supportive of the relationship except for Dale. He seemed to have an off-putting feeling about Matt, yet continued to subside his feelings since his daughter was happy. Their connection was immediate, sparking a romance that was as passionate as it was profound. Their courtship was like a fairy tale, filled with moments that would make anyone swoon. They shared a love for the simple things in life, quiet afternoons spent reading, strolling through parks hand in hand, and evenings spent under the starlit sky. Eventually, Dale's skepticism is finally justified. One night, while Matthew and Lauren were over Lauren's parents' house for a game night, Matthew confesses to all of Lauren's family that he had already had a failed marriage prior to dating Lauren. This immediately confused Lauren's parents, and they began questioning Matthew's character and integrity, since he was so young and has already been divorced. Lauren's parents were primarily concerned for Lauren since she was someone who was dating for the purpose of achieving marriage. Even so, she was hoping to share a life with Matthew in the near future. The couple finally got engaged in 2015 and had their wedding the following year in 2016. The pair were both huge fans of the franchise Star Wars and incorporated it into their wedding theme. To the outside looking in, it seemed like Lauren and Matthew were the perfect couple and everyone's relationship goals. Lauren was constantly posting pictures of the two of them on her Instagram, so everyone got the perception they had a flawless dynamic. The proposal came as no surprise to their friends and family. Underneath the golden glow of a setting sun, he got down on one knee and presented her with a ring. It was a moment of pure joy, of promise, of a future filled with love. With tears of happiness streaming down her face, Lauren said yes, forever binding her life with his. Their wedding day was one of pure magic. Her husband, dapper in his suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. As they exchanged their vows, promising to love and cherish each other in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till death do them part, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Married life was everything they had dreamed of. They built a home filled with love and laughter, always supporting each other, always there for each other. Their bond seemed unbreakable, their love for each other undeniable. It seemed as though Lauren had found her happily ever after. However, not all love stories have a happy ending. In the beginning, Lauren and her husband appeared to be the perfect couple. They were young, in love, and ready to start their lives together. But as time went on, cracks began to appear in the facade. Their romance was not as idyllic as it seemed on the surface, and the relationship began to take a dark turn. As the two continued with their married life together, more and more irreversible problems started to put a wedge between Lauren and Matthew. First and foremost, despite the fact Lauren's family was ultimately accepting of Matthew, Matthew's family didn't act the same way towards Lauren, since his mother treated her very poorly. To name one incident, Matthew's mother came to his engagement party wearing a white dress and thus took away the attention from Lauren. For a majority of their relationship, Lauren and Matt's mother had a distant relationship due to the forced turmoil caused by his mother. In addition to his family, Matt himself demonstrated many problems that put a strain on his relationship with Lauren. Both partners had two different lifestyles growing up in their adolescent years, and it shaped them into being opposite kinds of people that may have trouble coexisting together. Her husband, once the charming man who had swept her off her feet, was changing too. He was becoming more controlling, more possessive. His temper, once kept under wraps, was now quick to flare. The spark in his eyes was replaced by a brooding darkness that didn't seem to lift. Lauren was a very hard-working and independent woman who worked multiple jobs at once to stay afloat financially. Some of Lauren's jobs included being an auditor, a daycare worker for her church, and participated in an MLM company. Meanwhile, Matthew did not like working and consistently had trouble keeping and finding jobs. A common cycle he would go through was Matthew would find a new job, start working, and then suddenly leave the job with little explanation as to what the reason was. Eventually, what seemed to be an attempt to keep their marriage afloat and impress Lauren, Matthew decided to go back to college to become a pastor for their church. When it came to his inconsistencies of jobs, that wasn't the only factor putting financial stress on Lauren. Matthew would also spend money that was over their budget on frivolous things such as electronics and gaming equipment. He would even go to the extent that of stealing money out of their savings or cash out of Lauren's purse. According to Lauren's family, Lauren had approximately $10,000 saved before getting married to Matt, and then right before her death, she only had a little under $1,000 left in that savings. Matt's spending habits caused many fights between the couple, as well as keeping them from pursuing things they wanted to do together. As mentioned before, the couple was a big fan of Star Wars, and were trying to save money to go to Disney World. But every time a little bit of money was saved up for the trip, Matt would take it and spend it on himself. Not only did Matt take Lauren's money without asking her, but it was implied that Matthew may have also committed adultery. Lauren and Matt had a neighbor named Valerie, whom Matt would often confide in and spend time with. There was one occasion, according to Lauren's sister Beth, when Lauren was talking on the phone with her while she was cooking dinner for Matt. When Matt came home from work, he said to Lauren he was going to go hang out with Valerie, and after he left, he texted Lauren saying, "Just eat dinner without me, I'm having way too much fun with Valerie." Despite Matt's casual attitude around their neighbor Valerie, this wasn't the same way he reacted when Lauren had friends who were men. Lauren and Matt also had multiple fights over jealousy, because Matt was worried there was another guy at their church he thought may have feelings for Lauren. These fights lead to Matt not being able to trust Lauren, for no real reason, and Lauren to push back against Matt. At this point, Lauren was on the verge of leaving Matt and couldn't take his immature behavior anymore. However, her conflict came to a screeching halt on September 1st, 2017, when a 911 dispatcher received a call from Matthew in the middle of the night. Little did Lauren know her life was about to change forever. In the early hours of August 2nd, 2017, a 911 call reported a horrific incident. At around 1 a.m., A 911 dispatcher received a call from Matthew who sounded like he was pretending to act delirious. Phelps claims he had accidentally stabbed his wife to death while he was dreaming, and suddenly woke up and saw his wife according to his side of the conversation with the dispatcher. "I had a dream, and then I turned on the lights and she's dead on the floor. I have blood all over me and there's a bloody knife on the bed and I think I did it. I can't believe this, I can't believe this, I don't even know what time it is. Yeah, I can see her. She's 29, she's not breathing. Oh my God." Not long after this portion of the phone call, Matthew admits to why he is acting so strangely and giving a terrible excuse for his murder. I took more medicine than I should have. I took Coricidin Cough and Cold because I know it can make you feel good. A lot of times I can't sleep at night. In less than 15 seconds later, police arrive at the scene in hopes of saving Lauren, but she was immediately pronounced dead when arriving at the hospital. Later, during the autopsy, they saw that Lauren had obtained 123 stab wounds. Meanwhile, back at the crime scene, everything about the decorum was very unsettling and didn't look authentic. The knife was set perfectly on the bed as Matt said in the call, and the cough medicine was left laid out on the bathroom counter, supporting his claim to taking cough medicine. Investigators said the way everything was placed looked staged. Furthermore, when investigators arrived at the scene, Matt had almost no blood on him aside from some on his shoes and a few drops on his shirt. Obviously, this comes off as looking suspicious because it was clear he tried to clean himself up. And if you feel as though you needed to clean yourself up before calling 911, then you know you did something wrong. At the crime scene, Matt had a complete shift in his demeanor. He spoke to the cops in a very emotionless and matter-of-fact way. For obvious reasons, the cops immediately took him into custody since he was the prime suspect, and it's more likely than not, Matt was the one that murdered Lauren. Friends, family, neighbors, all grappling with the devastating reality. The vibrant girl with the infectious laugh, the woman who had brought so much joy to those around her, was no more. As investigators looked further into Matt's motives, they found a journal he had written in before he killed Lauren and talked about all of his adversities. He discussed how he had low esteem, was feeling insecure in his relationship with Lauren, and felt as if he didn't fit in well with her family. Another neighbor had been interrogated after Lauren's murder who was a woman that they thought Matt flirted with. She remains anonymous but has said that they were only friends and bonded over their similar struggles with depression and anxiety. But as they continued spending time together, Matt began talking about more morbid subjects, such as suicide and death in general, because he was aware that this friend of his owned a licensed and concealed gun in her home. The last major piece of evidence for Matt's motives that investigators discovered was a secret Instagram account Matt had. The handle was Marty_Radical, and even though the account is private to the public, investigators said the posts on this account contained Matt talking about the devil and demons. The world had been robbed of a beautiful soul, a life full of promise extinguished far too soon. In the midst of this chaos, one thing became painfully clear. Lauren Hugelmaier's life had been tragically cut short. The echoes of her laughter, the memories of her joy, now overshadowed by the chilling silence of her absence. The vibrant girl with the infectious laugh, the woman who had brought so much joy to those around her, was no more. And the world was left a little less bright without her. Finally, when the trial came, prosecutors used all of the evidence and information that was shared in the last section, but also tried to argue that Matt knew what he was doing when he killed Lauren. This was mainly due to the fact that once they got access to Matt's phone, they found his search history in his browser where he was typing in questions such as, "How loopy does Coricidin make you?" and "Have other people been high from Coricidin?" So, from looking at these Google searches, it's clear this murder was premeditated since he was already planning on using the cough medicine as a scapegoat. Investigators also did a luminal test around their apartment to see if there was any of Lauren's blood that Matt tried to clean up before the police could see it. Sure enough, there was traces of blood everywhere. There was blood all over their bathroom, and it was obvious Matt cleaned it up for the authorities. When it came to Matt's attorney, they didn't have a lot they could work with to defend Matt. Their main argument was that this wasn't in Matt's character, and his reasoning for doing this was because he was in a more unstable and depressed headspace. The only follow-up with this argument is the court received a few letters from Matt's coworkers over the years, saying they never thought Matt would do something like this, and essentially arguing the same thing as the defendants. The trial finally came to a close on October 5, 2018, where all of Lauren's family and members of her church showed up to see Matt's sentencing and raise awareness for domestic violence. Matt ended up accepting a plea deal and pled guilty for the first-degree murder of Lauren and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After his sentencing, Matt vocalized an apology to Lauren's family, but it ultimately means nothing to them and they cannot forgive him. Lauren's family is continuing to grieve the loss of her, and feel a sense of blame for not stopping their relationship from progressing further. To this day, they have put together an organization called Lauren's Light, which raises awareness for abusive relationships and domestic violence. The man Lauren loved was now accused of her murder. Lauren's death shook her community and left her family devastated. Her spirit, her love, her radiant energy, these are what her family, friends, and community chose to remember. Her memory continues to live on, a reminder of a life cut tragically short.